Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dr. Nobody podcast with your host, Dr. Nobody. I'm so excited to be doing this episode with you all again. One, because to be transparent with you, I'm actually recording this episode after I launched. So here's what I did. I actually did all my guest interviews first. In between, I had been writing scripts for my episodes, my personal episodes, and I did record a couple episodes in different orders. But this one specifically, I hadn't done because it was a hard episode to create in terms of content. There's just so much. I didn't want to really hurt all your ears for too long. But anyway, since I launched, it's just been such an amazing experience to outpour of support from friends and family. It's just been so amazing. So I just want to thank you all for listening in, and I want to thank you all for being so supportive and understanding what I'm doing here. It just really made it clear with a lot of your responses. So thank you. But anyway, welcome back. This episode is again going to be split up into two parts, part one and two of the career of a nobody, me, my career. So the last time we spoke about my life. Then I had two parts for that episode. Then I had my guest Nigel talk about the adversity in his life, what he's experienced, which was really powerful. One, to do an interview with him, and two, just to hear it from other people on how they responded from it. So it's really nice to understand that and really give me even more motivation to do this. So it's working. But you heard how hard it was for me, what I've been through, what my family's been through, and the things that have led actually to a lot of heartaches, but a lot of successes. But the most important thing that I really wanted you all to take home with is what I did with those things that happened to me, the opportunities that were presented, and I essentially took advantage of them. A lot of things in my life or your life set you up or make you the person who you are. Look at what's happened to me. I had many of those things happen to me. Seeing it now and talking about it now, I can see all those hardships shaped me, retrospectively speaking, because let's be honest, when those things were happening, all the deaths in my family and the suffering, I did not think that I would be at this point in my life. So thank God, I'm really happy where I am, and just continue to grow. And I hope that motivates you all as well. What I want to focus now on are major career points that got me to basically a very successful career that is still growing. I want to show you all that if someone like me could do it, despite everything, okay, you can absolutely do it as well. And you shouldn't really have any excuses not to. A lot of excuses that people talk about with me is just being lazy. It's that motivation. But you need it. You need to get it. You need to dig deep. Okay. If you haven't listened to my previous episodes, or even my guest episode, I suggest you do, but you don't have to get a lot of the context. But there are some points in this story that I'm not going to belabor the actual topic and talk about it again because it's in my life episode, and timelines as well. But, it to each his own. Just sit back, enjoy this episode. When my father instilled hard work into me, it never left me since I was little. It's always been stuck on me. Everything I did, I put the hard work in, and I never gave up. Till this day, actually, except for one time. And it's kind of corny, but for me, it's a time where I quit. I knew I quit, and I hated the feeling of it. But I did it. And it was when I was playing football. It was a really hard year. My dad was struggling. He was getting sicker. I had to quit the team, despite not wanting to, but I did because I wanted to be home more and support him. And also I wanted to work more to help him and help my family. But to be honest, there were other reasons why I was, wanted to leave. And that's I was tired, doing two a days and football games, and it was a lot of energy being taken from me. But I also just wanted to be home, chill, and play video games. I was also preparing for college, doing things like that. So I was a pretty busy kid at that time. Um, but that's the only time I can sit here and truly say that I quit something. Uh, and no matter what I've experienced and what you're about to hear, I always powered through it. I can make a million excuses why I could have quit all these instances, but I always found a way. That's the thing. I didn't think, yes, of course I thought about quitting, but no, I didn't quit. I just figured out other ways. Even through all the terrible bosses I had, I still didn't quit. So just keep that in mind. Let's start with my first job. I was a baker in ShopRite. Yep. Dr. Nobody started as a baker. It was actually, I gotta say, it was kind of fun. Um, yes, I did home ec at when I was in high school. I really liked the baking aspect. I liked dealing with customers. Also, it was the only job that took me. So yes, there's that issue, but it was fun. I made a lot of friends. I learned a lot. Did that for about a year and a half. The only sucky part about being a baker is waking up early. I am not an early bird, naturally born gamer, obviously late owl. So waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get that bread ready and your donuts and cakes, yeah, that sucked. But I made cakes. I learned from the baker that was there at the time. He would decorate the cakes, make the cakes. So it was a lot of fun. So it was a good place to start for me. I literally remember my first check of $90, and I was just like, I'm rich. I didn't know what to do with this money. I was like, $90. Now nowadays, $90 for kids is like what they take out of your taxes. So yeah, it's totally different times, but it is what it is. I still had a good time. Slowly after, I joined Boy Scouts and started to diversify my experience. So I started preparing my life. I initially didn't join Boy Scouts because it was like something I found. I joined Boy Scouts because my cousin was in Boy Scouts. Actually forgot how he got into it, but they told me about it, told my parents about it, and like, hey, we're there, we'll drive them, we'll go together. So I joined up Boy Scouts, and it was it was awesome. Definitely, we'll be going into more of the story of my Boy Scout experience, but I'm just going to give you some information about it. In Boy Scouts, there obviously there's a troop, and then there's different levels that you can essentially rank up, and things you can do. And I was at the top of my game. I ranked up really fast. I did all the tests really fast. I did what it needed to be done. I was the top in my troop and in the region. My troop was the top in the region. I mean, we would compete and we just decimate other troops. We were just so good. I also did all the merit badges. I was a leader of the troop. I went to all the meetings. I worked my butt off in Boy Scouts, and it really showed, and it really helped me grow too. Because Boy Scouts isn't just about meetings and reciting things, and there's a lot of growth opportunities in Boy Scouts. At least when the Boy Scouts that I knew back in the day, 10, 15 years ago. Now I can't speak for it, but definitely, there's just so many things that Boy Scouts did for me in my life that really prepared me. Also, it helped me for my extracurriculars for college because I really didn't have any besides being playing video games all day. But I did leverage that. And in that year, I graduated high school. I turned 18. I that day, I remember graduating, going in the car, honking. I was by myself. I didn't have friends really. Um, but I still did it. It was fun. And the next day, I think, or that Monday or something, I put on my fancy clothes and I drove around town. I was trying to find a job, old school. Like there was no LinkedIn, there was no I mean, I guess there were some online stuff, but it wasn't the same. Like I was back then, you would go to apply and there would always be like a little tiny computer that you would sit at and you would write an application for that specific job, and it would print it out and you would give your application, or it would go into their database and then be like, thank you, we'll call you. That's how it was back then. So I went around and I wanted a specific job. I had to one, my counselor gave me advice, and two, I just understood that he was okay. I understood that I needed a job that was in my field. He told me as well, look for a job that's related for the field you want or what you're interested in. And I was interested in biology. So I definitely like science. And the only job that I can think of that an 18-year-old with a high school degree could do at the time was be a pharmacy technician. So I went to my local CVS, which at that time was 5 minutes away. I went, spoke to the pharmacist. Sold my soul to him and left my info. He just, after I talked to him, he's like, just give me your number. I'll call you. I was like, there's no application. He's like, no. So it's fine. I left. I drove for another 4 or 5 hours to all these different pharmacies, Walgreens, Rite Aid, whatever, you name it. I went to them, left my application, and I went home that night. I felt pretty defeated, got no catch, whatever. But my dad just told me that's how it is. It is what it is. I just graduated. There's a lot of other kids looking for jobs, so it was going to be tough. So the next day, I was ready to go back out, and I got a call, and it was the very first pharmacy I went to in my hometown. I was beyond excited. I was so freaking excited. I was like, no way I got this job. So I gotta say, that job definitely set me up for my whole career. It was such a pivotal, foundational job. I mean, obviously, I didn't know. Okay, just always keep that in mind. There's no way I could have known unless I'm lying to you and I'm a secret time traveler and I knew that was going to happen. So I went back in time, told myself get a pharmacy job, and then went back to it. No, obviously no. But it was really cool. Pharmacy technician work just taught me things beyond school that can teach you. So I wanted to be something in biology, but I didn't know what yet. I was exhausted after every work session. It was just so much to do. I could have definitely been a 9 to 5 job person, whatever. But I went beyond that. I was weird. I definitely read the little pamphlets on the drugs, which are called the prescribing information. So I would open them up and just read the mechanisms, the contradictions, what you couldn't take with it, what would it do, the side effects. I'd ask the pharmacist that I work with to teach me more about the drugs. I asked for more work. I ordered drugs for the pharmacy. I started taking more of a leadership role. I spoke to doctors. I did a lot. I just asked for more and more. And then I took my passion to the next level and I challenged myself. I I I asked to be put into other pharmacies as what we would call a rotating technician. So I would go and help different pharmacies in a pinch and take over as a technician. I'd have to learn the ropes of their pharmacy because every pharmacy works a little bit different for CVS. And it helped immensely, like for my growth. Like it just taught me a lot. I got to learn to work with a lot of different types of people from different places, languages. I learned different managerial styles, micromanagers, non-micromanagers, aggressors, non-aggressors, whatever you want to. I dealt with them. Eventually, I took my role to the next level when I was offered, and that was to become a trained certified lead technician. So these are technicians that take their education to the next level to, yes, there's more pay, but there's more responsibilities. And I was a little bit nervous, but I they gave me the books and I trained for the test and I passed. It was freaking hard. I remember how much I studied and how nervous I was, but then like a week or two later I got the email that I passed. And I got my raise, I got the new badge, and now I have more of a leadership managerial role there. So it was great. And they gave me that training experience to do that. But what would happen was I was put in other pharmacies in need of my help, and I trained people as well. And I helped those pharmacies become more efficient, have better workflows. I did leave CVS for a short stint, a couple times, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I came back and they ended up putting me pretty far from my house, which was unfortunate, but it was close to my school. So I was still full-time student, full-time worker. 40 hours worker, and I think I was doing 21 hours as a student, and anybody knows that's a lot. I worked there for almost a year at that pharmacy, It was a very Hispanic area. That's why they put me there. I spoke Spanish, so they needed someone that could translate and help people, so which was fine. But this store had so many issues and problems. Like it was actually scary to work there. I was It was rough. It was a very rough area. A lot of customers were very terrible. They just always wanted it out for you. They just wanted to do whatever they could to hurt you. Like this one lady, because I refused to call a pharmacy for her that was an hour away. I just didn't call. I was like, ma'am, this doesn't make sense. Like there's that pharmacy's an hour away. We're about to close. They're gonna close. You're not gonna make it. She got mad. She cursed me out and she left. I think like a couple weeks later, the manager came up to me and is like, "Hey, we just got a letter from the CEO of CVS saying that that lady reported me." Now, I get that people write reviews on Yelp or Amazon or whatever, and they'll do 1 star or complain to the manager at a restaurant. But this lady went to the CEO and wrote him a letter about what I did. I could not believe it. I was just like, "You're joking, right?" He's like, "No, this is her name." It was her name. I saw the letter. I was like, "I can't believe it." And I mean, I'm thinking about it now how angry I was, but she was just crazy. And to be fair, she was taking crazy meds. So I don't know why they even read it or even took it seriously. But yes, I was given a warning. I was terrified. I was like, that's never happened to me. I've never been in trouble. I was so scared, but it was fine. I got over it. And when I saw her many more times after that, I would get away from the computer and I would let the next one of the other techs help. And I wouldn't help her. I just ignored her. I was like, I'm not going to deal with you. It is what it is. And then I guess a couple months later, because I remember it was towards my graduation. Oh no, no, no. This was towards my end of my third year. Um, these two guys came to the CVS and to our pharmacy, and just came up to my pharmacist boss and was like, "I we need to speak to Doctor Nobody." And they took me to the manager room and they singled me out. So I was like, "Whoa, this is weird. I wonder if this is about what happened with that lady." But I wasn't sure, nor did they ever tell me truly why they were there. They sat me down and interrogated me for hours, not like a couple minutes. I was there for like 4 hours with them, just sitting there between these two huge guys. I was horrified. I was like, what, 19, 18, 19, something like that, or 20. But it was just so rough. They definitely did the bad cop, good cop crap at me, and I couldn't believe what was happening. So essentially, what they were telling me was that people had been stealing stuff from the stores and not ringing them up. It was so easy to do that, yes, but in the pharmacy, they track everything. All the pills are tracked, the drugs are labeled and tracked. Like it's hard, but they were talking about the front store, so like chips and soda. Yeah, I saw people do that, but I'm gonna play it, and I know people are gonna roll their eyes, but I was a good Christian. I still am. I try to be a good person. I've never stole in my life, and I brought my own food all the time, and the managers knew that. Like they always made fun of me. Like I would bring hot pockets or I bring a sandwich or whatever. I always did, because I didn't make that much money and I wanted to save some more. They didn't believe me. They threatened to look at every camera since I joined there and sit there and watch me until they found something on me, even if it wasn't stealing something. Like if a pill fell in my jacket or something, and they would fire me and send me to jail. Yeah, I pooped my pants. I was so scared. I don't want my life to be ruined for something that I definitely didn't do. I was so confused why this was happening and specifically why I was being targeted. They took my badge and they sent me home. I was fired that day for no real proof or reason. They never gave me an explanation. CVS never reached out back out to me, and I just disappeared. And none of the people at my job either like reached out to me too. I thought I had friends, but they got told not to talk to me or they got threatened as well. But it all ended like that. My career at CVS just vanished because of whatever happened, or some sketchy or racism or whatever it was. It was bad. But I didn't have a job for a while, but I didn't let it get to me. I did what I could. I was really resilient, and I did get enough experience out of the CVS to help me move forward. So that short stint I did, well, that was the McNair program. It's a research program which we're going to talk about, and also have people from that program that will talk about it a little bit more. But it's another opportunity that I could say totally changed my life and career. This is another point in my life that it set me up for something that I had no idea that I would end up doing. So, McNair Research Program is a program that helps students get their desired terminal degree, specifically PhD. And it was for minority students, so people or low income first generation minority students. I'll talk about it again, but it was just hard for minority students to do anything back then. Now it's a little bit different. Yes, there's a lot more people that are more programs, more people getting up there, but it was hard. I had loved lab work, and one of the professors I was helping set up their lab asked me if I liked research, and that was based on a paper I was reading, and I didn't know it was a research paper. She was like, Dr. Nobody, you're reading a research paper. Why are you reading it? I'm like, oh, I thought this was just a paper, like an article. I don't know. I didn't know what a research paper was. And she took notice and she told me there's this program, speak to this woman. She'll tell you more about it. And that's when I met my McNair advisor and mentor. And she will be on this podcast at a later date, talk about it more. But I applied and joined the McNair program. They put me in my very first research lab with a really, man, this professor was so good. Thinking about it now, he really set me up. I mean, he was rough, but he was good. He told me how it was, and they did him dirty at the school I was. They ended up letting him go for, I guess he didn't get his tenure or whatever, but he was really good. He set me up with all the basics of research, just even holding a pipette, like it's a tool to measure liquids at a very, very, very minuscule amount. And it was just great experience. I got to chill in the summer with people that were amazing and like-minded like me, got paid. I got to stay in the dorms, which were amazing. It was great. It was such a good experience, which during that introduced me to my two best friends that will also be on this podcast. And it was just it was just really cool. It was just really great. I also did a little stint while I was in the McNair program at a lab where I interviewed, and this is this is the moment where I knew I wasn't ready and I needed to work even harder. And also changed my mindset of how I should prepare for interviews and just life in general when I do things. Like if I join a new job or I learn a new program or whatever it is, how I do research ahead and learn and get the books and YouTube, whatever it is, to prepare. So the guy was a doctor. He sat me down and he just looked at me and he just asked me a simple question. Because I had said that I liked virology, which is study of viruses, and immunology, which is study of immune system, he goes, "What is the name of the cold virus?" That's it. It was such a simple question. I'm like, "Oh, it's the cold virus." And he looked at me, he goes, "No, what's the scientific name of the cold virus?" Oh my gosh, what's the name? I couldn't remember. Did I even know? I just like, I remember my brain was about to pop. I panicked. I was sweating. I had a tie on. I hate ties. I was freaking out. And he looked at me and just laughed. And he told me it's a rhinovirus. And I told him, I'm so sorry. I I'm just a sophomore. I promise I'll learn more things and I'll get ready. I knew personally I was immensely underqualified at that moment. But he was cool about it. He was like, "It's okay. We don't expect you to know everything. You'll learn a lot here." He was really chill. I did get the job. I was a technician for like half a year. It was really cool. I got to play with a lot of cool instruments and microscopes and samples. It was just a little fun like side experience that I did, and it was cool. So, in that 1 year leading to the next summer, I did tutoring for money, which started to mold my ability to teach people. And I'll talk about that as well. But I love teaching. I just love talk. One, I love talking science. I could talk science all day, but I love just teaching people, talking to people, understanding them. It was such an eye opening experience to see so many students at different levels and needing so much help. Like it just baffled me. What I thought was simple was beyond the comprehension for most. And that was an eye-opening moment for me because I was humbled. I didn't want to come off pretentious or rude or arrogant or whatever you want to call me. So I learned to be a better person because of that. I wanted to help people and I didn't want to offend them. That summer, I got accepted to the research experience for undergraduates, REU, at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. It was a really prestigious program, and it was just so cool that I was at Vanderbilt. It's an Ivy League, right? I think so. It was, and I was gonna go away from home. It was the first time. Yeah, I for Boy Scouts I would be gone for like a week or two, but never 4 months on my own, cold turkey. Didn't know how to cook. Didn't know how to do laundry. I got plopped there. I lived there for 4 months, but it was awesome experience. It was fun. I loved Tennessee. Um, it was nice to be independent like that and know what my limitations are. I was put there to fend for myself. Let's be honest. I had to learn how to do everything. At this place, I met my still great friend and mentor that will be speaking in a couple episodes, and he just helped me out there and after so much. So it was great that I was put there. I worked in two labs, which is kind of unheard of when you're doing research. But I did a biochemistry and microbiology experience. It was extremely difficult. I had to run between labs, between buildings. But I wanted that challenge. I was the only student doing that in the program at the time, if I remember correctly. But it was fun. I got to meet a lot of people. The professors were really good, and the project was fun, and it was great for my resume, to be honest. Let's I mean, the names of the professors that I was working with were really prestigious names. It was a tough 4 months, but I made it through with incredible experience and friendships. I got to go to the country music festival there. That was a one of a kind experience that I definitely can say that I did. But after the RU, because the RU program did pay me a ton of money. Now it's a ton of money back then. Now it's just like chump change, but a ton of money to do this program and stay on their campus. So it was nice that I was still getting paid to do things. Um, but then after I came back, I started working in different labs. I worked with the dean at the university at King University for a while. That was really good. What I really wanted to do, which was the advice I had gotten from my first research advisor, I'm telling you, this man set me up for a good reason, not set me up like in a bad way. It's just don't do the same thing. Meaning, don't just do biology research, biology. Do other things. Expand your horizon. Do chemistry, microbiology, oncology, whatever. Just do different things to really prepare you, because what I didn't know at that time, young and just crazy, that all these different topics can easily translate to other disciplines as well. So if you're an expertise in one, usually you're pretty good in the other as well because of how the different topics work. The point was, I got to see different areas and see what they do and how I can use those tools in the other disciplines as well. Then you take your knowledge, you're essentially taking it to the next level, and then you take that knowledge to another level, and you put yourself at the far end of the competitive edge, and you marry and mix the topics, create something totally different and insanely cool, and that's what makes you stand out. That's exactly what I had done. But I put myself forward as a power candidate for jobs because of that experience. My advisor towards my junior year was an incredible woman. She was stern, but she had heart. She wanted me to succeed. What she did for me at such a young age was literally prepare me for many things like teaching. I helped her teach her molecular biology class, which is also a computational class. So I was using computers and biology. I tutored for her. I ran her lab. I owned my own research projects in her lab. I mean, for me, it was a great experience. I had fun, and she really cared about me. I even got to take master courses as a junior with her, and that was awesome. Like, I mean, I was like 5 years younger compared to everybody else, but I wasn't treated that way. It was really cool. One of those research projects was that I was working on was on a colon cancer drug. That was the hope for me to help my father, who was sick, as you heard from the previous episode. I was going to get this drug out so that I can help him. I always kept telling him just to hold on. I needed more time, technically years, but I knew what was going to happen. I knew that it was inevitable, that this was going to take a long time and he would probably pass before then. But that's how long it takes to advance certain sciences. Fortunately, he did pass as I was doing this research project, and it was really hard to go back to lab and doing work. And she understood that. My mentor understood that, and she let me do computational work instead. I really struggled my last year of college. It was so hard. I can't believe I made it out of college with I think it was like a 3.2 GPA. Wasn't that high, but it was good. I was a good student, but that year just destroyed me. I did my GREs, which is the test that you do to go into PhD programs. And I got, this is really embarrassing to admit. I think only a couple people in my life actually know this, but I got the points that you literally get first taking the test. I almost got every single answer wrong in that 4-hour test that I took. It was atrocious. It was embarrassing. And I still applied to schools with that, thinking innocently that they would still take me. My numbers were atrocious. Since I didn't get into college, I didn't know what to do, so I slumped around the McNair office until one of the advisors came and told me about a conference she went to and discovered a program called the Bridge to PhD program. It was a program to help college graduates become more mature of an applicant and help prepare them to reapply or apply for the first time to graduate school. So I thought, wow, that sounds great. What I didn't tell you is that I for sure thought I was going to get into Vanderbilt, but I was rejected. That was because I had such a strong relationship at Vanderbilt. Like I really had a lot of people. I had a lot. I mean, I killed it during interviews. The people told me that I have the best interviews that anyone had done in that cohort of interviews that came to Vanderbilt. And I was like, why aren't you taking me? I sent emails. I even spoke to the dean, and she told me it was your GREs. I went to Vanderbilt and I spoke to her, and she told me in my face it was my GREs. Never in their history would they have ever accepted with somebody so low of a score. It would embarrass them. That's what I was told. I was like, are you for real? You're basing me on my GRE scores. Something that's, I think personally, now that I'm done with all these standardized tests, is just so stupid. Looking back, they missed out. Later, I learned that they really did regret not taking me in, but it's fine. I joined this Bridge to PhD program. It was a 2-year program, and I got paid a very decent wage. I got to work at Columbia, top tier school, Ivy League, New York City. It was great. I joined a biochemistry lab. But what I didn't realize, like I mentioned previously, is that my advisor, what I suspect was the biggest prick and possible racist that I've ever had experienced at that time. I did get a lot from Columbia. I did free coursework, GRE prep, mentorship, training programs, and research. It was great. They really prepared me. I greatly appreciate everything I got, but I got totally stonewalled later on. After 2.5 years, they do kind of zone you out. They tell you to move on. They really help you transition to a PhD program or help you apply to something else and do it later. But I wasn't ready. I just still didn't feel like I was ready. And so I didn't do it. In the final weeks, the final months of my contract, I was promised by my advisor that I would be extended. And the final weeks came and they said, sorry, we can't. I knew it. I knew it. Why would they take me? How horrible they were throughout those years to me. Why would they take me? But the thing was, I wasn't ready. I didn't have another job. I was even looking because I was like, come on, they have to take me. I was still taking care of my mother and my siblings, and I just thought I ended up screwing my whole life. Like I couldn't believe it. But luckily, one day I was going to an exercise class with my aunt, and she told me about this job position for a biology teacher at her school. And I was interested. I was like, oh, but I don't really have much teaching experience besides tutoring. But you know, I got really prepared. We went camping that summer, and I took the textbooks from the school to prepare. And I read them all. Yes, I read textbooks, and I made a coursework. I made a curriculum, and I nailed the interview. I did a presentation. They had me teach little kids, even though I was teaching high schoolers, but it's just to see my teaching style. And I did it. I nailed it. I got the job, and I loved it. I loved my job. I got to teach science, math, religion, and lab. That was the fun part for me. I was like, I had to do science labs and chemistry labs, and I also had class pets, which I never had when I was in high school. So I was like, I'm going to do this for my kids. I had geckos, I had fish, things like that. But those 2 years teaching kids taught me so much more about myself and what I wanted to do. I realized first I needed to help people. I loved helping these kids. I loved helping the parents sometimes, and even within my own coworkers. But the kids taught me things that I didn't know, how to communicate better to them, to people, to understand emotions, be a better person as well, and how not to smell bad. Yes, junior high school and high school kids smell so bad. They are going through puberty and they just emit bad odor all the time. A lot of the kids that I taught are past high school, past college, adults now, but I'm sure they're going to listen to this and be like, he's talking about us. And yes, I am talking about you. You all smelled terribly. But I love teaching and I still do. Any opportunity I do, I take it. I love teaching. During my stint at the Christian school, that's where I met my wife. She was the she was the one who changed my entire life, as I mentioned, and helped push me to do my PhD, which I ended up doing. I'm gonna save for another episode how I met my wife. That because I see how much time we've already spent in this episode, but I promise I will. But it's a very nice story, nonetheless. So anyway, I ended up applying to 13 schools, one of them at Columbia and one of them at Vanderbilt again. And as I previously mentioned, the Columbia folks were terrible people. And after making me wait for a letter for 3 months, so I had asked that professor that I worked with if he could write me a letter, and he said yes. And I reminded him every month, like, hey, can you write me? He said yes, yes. I'm working on it. I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. And then time was getting closer and closer. And I'm like, this guy is not going to write me the letter. Eventually, it was a week before the deadlines for all my applications. And guess what happened? The program director had called me from Columbia to say, hey, I heard you're applying to schools. We could have helped you. We're sorry we, been more in contact. And I was like, okay, I did contact the guy. Where's my rec? And she goes, yeah, about that. Well, unfortunately, he's not going to write you a letter of recommendation. And I said, are you serious? I gave him 3 months in advance and he kept emailing me that he would do it. Yeah, he said he's not going to be able to do it. He's really busy right now. I knew that was total BS. And what's the worst part is that he wasn't man enough to tell me himself. He had someone else tell me. At that moment, he destroyed every opportunity I had to join any school. Graduate school is pretty strict on applications. Like, yeah, in general, college applications are strict, but no, the graduate school applications are even stricter. It's a lot about character, is how they take certain students. And keep in mind, no matter what has been done to my life, all these terrible things so far that I've told you, because it hasn't all of it yet, I never retaliated. I never badmouthed. I didn't do anything. And notice that when I talk about people, I don't actually say their names or talk about certain things because I want to give them that respect. But I just could not believe this was going to happen to me. So I just thought, you know what? Whatever. We'll figure something out. I'll let justice be served on its own. My mentor from Vanderbilt ended up writing. I called him up and I told him what was happening, and he in a pinch wrote me a letter of recommendation, and in a matter of like a day or two I was able to send that out. He saved me. I was able to get accepted to Rutgers University, and that's it. I got rejected from 12 schools including Vanderbilt and Columbia, but got accepted to my final school, which was Rutgers. And let me tell you, that day that I got my letter, remember vividly, we were watching TV. I had the letter in my hand and I opened it, and I realized it was really thick. So I'm like, this has to be an acceptance letter. There's like a rejection letter this big. And when I opened it, I cried. I saw that I was accepted. Um, I just cried so much because, I mean, my wife cried with me too. She knew and I knew that the culmination of all my hard work has finally paid off. I'm going to graduate school. I was set. What we didn't know, which is what I said in my previous episode, was the hell I was about to face that was way worse than anything that I just told you in this episode, both personal and professional. This was my final boss. I hope you gain insights and are excited to find your own passions. This is the beginning of becoming a someone, but specifically the someone you always wanted to be. In the next half of the episode, we're going to talk about my graduate experience and beyond, and a lot more career points that I haven't spoken about. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please give me a review, a like, a subscribe to the podcast. You can also visit my website, thedrnobodypodcast.com, to learn more about my guests and listen to the episode again, share this episode, and much more. Thanks again for listening to the Dr. Nobody podcast, where we turn nobodies to somebodies. Talk to you all very soon.